Hello, gamers, and welcome to Xbot and Pony. My name is Phil,
My name is Nick.
and for this week's discussion, we've decided to focus on an article featuring Shawn Layden, the former head of Sony PlayStation. And he has some interesting things to say. He's got this idea that games are just too long these days. What do you think, Nick? Are games a little bit too long these days?
It's a really interesting discussion, isn't it? I, I think it's a yes and no answer, and it might come down to the individual, but I'm going to head more a little bit towards the yes.
Mm.
How about you?
You know, that's the thing. If you'd asked 15-year-old Phil, he'd be like, no, give me more. Make
I
them
want
longer.
more.
I want to absorb this game for the next 3 years and not live anything else.
Exactly.
Old man Phil with a full-time job is kind of like, you know what? 4 or 5 hour game sounds good to me. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, I can see that. I think you're right. This is going to be a bit divisive. Some people are going to be like, no, I enjoy in that length. Some people are going to say, no, shorter experiences means I can play through more. I can get both sides here. But what specifically is Sean saying, Nick? Like, why does he actually want us to reduce the size of games?
There's a couple of points he brings up. The main one is the industry can't sustain itself making these 7-year developments. Obviously, we'll probably talk a lot about The Last of Us Part 2 because it's more recent, but it's not the only game that's done this. There's plenty of other games from other companies. It costs a lot of money to make video games this year. We're not talking about some pixels and textures. It's mocap, voice actors.
Mm.
Budgets are huge, and then every time you continue to make a game and it gets delayed and delayed and delayed, that's extra costs. Not saying these games don't make money. We know they do. The gaming industry generates more money than music or movies these days. So
Combined, even. Yeah.
combined, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's even more impressive when you say it like that.
Mm.
So he's saying that shorter games could be more sustainable, 15 hours, 3-year development time instead of these 5 to 7 year development for 30 plus hour games.
Mm.
Um, he has a point, and his other point to that is that people would finish more games.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
right, I think he's right.
He's
He's
not wrong.
yeah,
Yeah, he's not wrong. I think the example that he used was that in the PlayStation 2 era, the average developer could produce, 5 or 6 games in a generation.
yeah,
Whereas in now, it's one, maybe two, if they're
yeah,
lucky, because it takes 4 to 5 years to actually create the game and make it of a certain standard that people will accept it. Um, and a lot of people have been pushing for these longer games, that they want these
yeah,
huge experiences. So if you want that graphical fidelity and a 60-hour experience, it's just physically going to take time to build.
yeah,
So I get what he's at, I really do. And I think I kind of agree with him. I miss those sort of 10 to 12-hour games where it's tight. There's no fluff. The story is edited the way that it should be, and it gives you a chance to play that game over a few nights, maybe over a weekend, and then you can try something else, or you can even start it again if you want
yeah,
to. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Some examples we've written down here. So we've got Resident Evil 3, for example, is one of those shorter games that a lot of people complained about. That was one.
It's a great example.
Great example. So
Yeah.
in comparison, we'll go Resident Evil 2. Yes, you play as 2 characters in that game, but the game's pretty much the same. Yes, you got some other scenarios you can play, but again, it's pretty much the same. It's a really tight knit story, and it does go in most people's first playthroughs around that 10 to 15-hour mark, depending on how good you are or if you've played these type of games before. Whereas number 3, a lot of people were finishing it in 5 hours.
Mm.
Both
I definitely did. I
$60.
think you did as well, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it was 6 and a bit. I did a bit of exploring. I know my second playthrough was 3 hours.
Yeah.
So once I knew where everything was in the first playthrough, and personal gripe, there was a bit cut out of that game from the previous game that should have been there, and a lot of fans will agree. That could have extended the game to be around that 10-hour mark, even if it's just under, that's still acceptable.
Mm.
But why are we paying $60 American, $70, $90 Australian for a game that's 5 hours and a game that's 15 hours or a game that's 40 hours?
See, that raises an
It's
interesting
a,
question in
yeah, yeah,
itself, doesn't it? Like, do you measure the quality of a game
via
based on
time play.
dollars per hour,
Yeah,
basically, that you've spent
yeah.
in it, you know. So
Is that your
if,
value of entertainment?
yeah, you
Because
know,
we
for
kind of do with movies, don't we? And TV shows are the same. They're spread out over 10 to 15 hours. Some used to be 20 hours, or but it's around that 10 to 15 hour block for a season. But it's spread out. We can go an hour each week for over a 12-week block or whatever. Or there's a gap there. It's over 12 months or 6 months, and then we get 6 months later we get another shot at it. Games, we can come back to them as well, but I think we kind of want to get through our games a lot quicker than we do a TV show.
You
Or
raise a really good point there, man. I've got a really good point. So I know just from when cinemas were open, yay,
yeah, yay.
different times. I've got to admit, when I was a teenager, like movies was pretty cheap, right, to go to the cinema. And I remember I'd go most weeks, and I would go and see movies that I was pretty sure were probably not going to be that great,
It's
or
$5.
a comedy. Yeah, exactly. It'd be $5, and I'm like, I don't care if it doesn't turn out to be good, no big deal, right? But now, in Australia, it's about $17 to go and
Yeah,
see a movie. And now I'm like, well, I only want to pay to see a movie in the cinema if it's going to be something that an experience I can't get elsewhere,
yeah,
right? It's going to be the big sci-fi movies or the big superhero movies. I'm no longer going to go and see those comedies or dramas or something that's a bit of a risk. It might not be very
you
good
don't. No,
because I feel like it's not value for money,
no,
right? And so I'm guessing that's what's coming across here. Similar is
exactly.
that people are saying that are they value for money? Are they worth your $60, for the game? But what we're not saying and I know it's different industries, I get that. But what we're saying now is, well, I'm not going to pay money to go to cinema unless the movie's 3 hours long.
Exactly.
You know?
And to be honest, when we find out a movie's 3 hours long, I myself personally go, do I want to sit in a cinema for 3 hours?
Yeah, there you go.
Like Kill
Even though
Bill
you're
was
getting
a
more
perfect
value per
example.
hour in theory, based on your dollars, right?
Well, Kill Bill was a perfect example. They forced Tarantino to split that in half.
Mm.
He wanted to release a 5 hour movie in cinemas, and they said, we
Mm.
can't do that. People won't come see it.
Mm.
And I think, what is it, Lord of the Rings? So you have your hardcore fans, but I know a lot of people, when those movies come out, people didn't want to go see it. So there's an argument there for movies that are too long
Mm.
should be shortened as well. So that's why we
And,
tend to.
and I feel that about games. I really, really do. I never finished Red Dead Redemption 2,
I
right?
haven't. I
Straight
haven't
up.
finished number
And
one, to be honest.
I loved the first one.
So
And
right, loved it, but
and
I haven't.
there's nothing wrong with what I've seen in Red Dead Redemption 2. But the idea of playing through 60 hours of that game
Yeah,
is just off-putting. And that's just purely because I'm a working man.
yeah,
I can't play that much. Um, and I haven't finished The Last of Us 2 yet, and so maybe you can talk us through it a little
yeah.
bit. But the general consensus that I've been hearing from people is actually the game is it's just too long.
It's too
Like
long.
it's about 5 hours too long, and the story would have benefited from a bit more
Much.
like trimming the fat. That it would have been
Exactly.
a tighter experience, better around the 15-hour mark, and it wouldn't have felt a little bit as meandering at times.
Yeah. I'm not going to downplay any games here because all games do it. Grand Theft Auto's done it. Last of Us does it.
Yeah.
There's probably little things where Grand Theft Auto where they force you to go 10-pin bowling.
Mm.
And I guess in The Last of Us, there's a few parts where it becomes a bit like Death Stranding. It's a walking simulator. You're just walking and talking. And personally, I'm like, well, okay, this is cool, but maybe it could just be a cutscene.
Mm.
Like, I'm not doing anything here. I'm not shooting people. I'm not collecting items. I'm not. And in saying that, just the cutscenes that could be shorter, there's some gameplay segments where you're like, well, hang on, I've been doing this same thing where I'm scavenging items to replenish my ammo and my health, killing people, repeat, killing people, repeat. And you're like, hang on, I've been doing this for 25 hours now.
Mm.
Maybe I can just finish. I want to know the end. I want this climatic ending because they're experiences now, these games. They're movie-like experiences. And if the gameplay is too long and everything's too long, it gets a bit tired. There's going to be a lot of people that just put the controller down and don't finish it. And there's a lot of hard work that goes into creating these things. Like people work a lot of hours and crunch and whatever. I think they want people to play their games from start to finish.
Of
They don't
course.
want to put these controllers down and go, well, I never finished that game, so I can't really talk about it.
Mm.
And you don't want that. So yeah, it's one of those hard things. And everybody is doing this lately, and they think it's going to make them more money. I mean, we obviously don't know, but for previous PlayStation boss to say it's not sustainable would mean that maybe they're not making enough money off these blockbusters. I mean, Grand Theft Auto is probably a little bit different. What are they, like 60 million copies or something? That's ridiculous. But they seem to be making more money off their microtransactions and the
I think
online.
that's what you've got it. Yeah. So the other thing that he mentions is that it's not, when you say it's not sustainable, it's that obviously the cost of making games has doubled pretty much every generation, right? As well as the scope of those games.
Maybe even tripled.
And the fact is, most games now cost 80 to 120 million to make.
Yep.
So charging just $60 for the game actually is not fair. Not fair's the wrong word, but like you're actually, the product should be more expensive than that, really.
That's what he's trying to say.
Yeah. So, but gamers won't do it. Gamers will not go above that price. So, what do you get instead? They've got to make their money elsewhere. So, collector's editions, DLC, microtransactions, loot boxes.
That's where they make their money.
And that's where they make their money. And
to not go off the tangent, but people complain about games these days. Most places are $69 Australian for a game, when our conversion rate is not that. But people still pay $59.99 in America, and we're only paying $10 extra. I have N64 games from Big W with $120 on them.
That's crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
We did pay $120. That's double almost what we're paying now. And, give it a few weeks, you walk into Big W, they're $59, $49. So the pricing of games technically should be higher than what we're paying now. It should be up around that $100 mark for the amount of hours and effort and time they're putting into it.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what Shawn was trying to say.
I think he's actually on the money. Yeah. I'm with you. It's not sustainable. They can't keep doing that. Otherwise, something will have to give. Like either the prices will have to go up, or they'll have to bring back the scope of those games. I think the example that he used bringing back to The Last of Us was that the first one
was 15 hours.
15 hours, took them 3.5 years to make. Second one is like 25 to 30 hours, and it took them 7 years to make. Yeah. And again, I haven't finished it, so I can't fully discuss it yet, and trying to avoid all the spoilers as well at this point. Most people, general feedback is that was probably 5 to 10 hours too long.
And that's people that like the game and people who didn't like the game. That's not just people that didn't like the game saying it's too long. That's a gripe from people that actually really did love the game. My mate Stan, same thing. He said he loved it, everything, but it could have been just a little bit tighter, and it probably would have been a bit more enjoyable. So, and for me personally, not a huge fan of the game, but it did become a bit of a drag, and I just really wanted to get to the end. And it could be a little bit in part that I wasn't enjoying certain gameplay elements, but even my partner, she said the same thing. She said, hang on, why is this still going? Like, the first game didn't go this long. Like, I want to see the end. So that's from she's not a gamer, she's a casual gamer, and that's from a casual gamer that enjoys watching and playing these type of games more than most games. It was too long to her as well. There is a few games that are else, like God of War was the same. If you look at the previous God of War games, they were about 10-hour. They're a little bit different. They're hack and slash games. There wasn't a bigger story into it. They've changed it into a big driven story. It is a 30-hour game. And personally, I did get a little bit tired towards the end, and then I was a bit surprised it was the end. And hang on a second, we're continuing the story on even more. So for me, God of War is practically part one. It's not even the complete story. So we've still got another 30-hour story to come in the sequel, we would assume. Last of Us 2 did it. They probably could have had a few things cut out just to make it a bit tighter. Other games have done it, like we said, Red Dead Redemption, your Grand Theft Autos. So, but these
do you have any good examples of a game that is around a 10-12 hour mark that you've played in the last couple of years that you think that's actually perfect, like it didn't need to be any longer than that?
Perfect examples, and probably a good thing, we think, I want more of this, but it was a good time where it didn't get tired, was both Ori games on Xbox Switch, the new one that just came out, Doom 2016, Doom Eternal, the spin-offs, which I assume the new Spider-Man will be the similar on the PlayStation 5, Uncharted Lost Legacy, First Light, Portal, that's a few we've written down. Most of your Resident Evil games as well, 5 to 6, 4, 5 and 6 got a little bit long in the tooth as well, I have to admit, whereas the first Resident Evil games, they were pretty well balanced. And we said, the remake of 1, the remake of 2, good. Remake of 3 was a bit short. 3 might be a little bit of a bad example because it was a shorter game back in the past as well. It was a tighter game, but we're still paying full price for it back then as well. So that's the same argument applies. Whereas the new Resident Evils, they tend to get a bit longer. Your Code Veronica, that was about 30 hours too, wasn't it?
20
to
I mean,
30.
it was 2 discs at the time. It probably
was
wasn't
huge.
quite 30, but it was a
It was
decent
close.
size. Yeah.
And number 4 was as well. 4, I mean, you get up to the castle in Resident Evil 4 and you think this is the end, and it just keeps going, and then you're underground, and you're like, what the hell? Like, it could have been trimmed a little bit as well. It'd be interesting to see if they trim that one in the remake as well, the rumored remake. They're good games, though. Your Uncharted games, your spin-off games, which they don't charge you full price. They are around that $50 mark, and they say these are standalone experiences in the same world. Here's a shorter story. They work really well, well. And people
I
tend
think
to
I'm with you
finish
there,
them.
man.
I mean, how many people tell you they haven't finished that game? They do. They all finish them. Where you get a lot of people, oh, I'm still going through Uncharted 4. I haven't finished Uncharted 4 yet. But it came out a while ago now, and that's because of the length of these games.
Yeah. No, I think you're pretty spot on, man. And I think I agree with Shawn overall. I think 10 to 12 hours is a really great time. It allows you to really absorb the story. It goes a little bit easier on the developers as well. And actually, just as simple as it allows you to play more games. Surely that's a good thing, right? The company, if Sony is generating or putting out, I don't know, I'm making up the number here, say 12 games a year, right? About 1 a month, you're more likely to purchase more of those games if you're going to get through each one a bit faster.
Which would mean money for Sony, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You're not picking these games up in 3 years when they're cheaper or secondhand or anything. You're buying them around launch. Even if they are a little bit cheaper in the pricing, they drop them down to that $40 mark. People are going to be buying more of them. So that means more money for Sony and more games for us to enjoy.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, not wrong there, man. And I get that maybe, again, that there are different audiences here. And I prefer those smaller experiences. And actually, I've been playing PSVR games a lot more over the last year or two because they have mostly been 4 to 5 hour experiences. I can complete them in 2-3 nights. And I feel like I got what I needed out of it, and then I'll go and see what else has just come out on the PSVR because I enjoyed that one so much. Although Sony do need to advertise that stuff more often.
They do, yeah. You look at our back catalogs. We mention it all the time. Oh, my back catalog's crazy. The game gets delayed, and you go, oh, that's disappointing. But I've got so many back catalog games to play because they probably are a little bit too long, and we tend to get into one, and then a new one comes out, so we start playing it because we haven't finished the previous one.
You and I, as old man gamers, the games that stand out for us that we play over and over and again that we've discussed in the past, your Golden Eyes, you can beat that in 4 to 5 hours less if you know what you're doing. Hell, I can beat Mario 64 in a couple of hours now. It's those shorter, compact, well-designed experiences you're more likely to actually go back to over and over again, rather than go, oh, am I going to have to invest another 50 hours from the start again, in this game? No, probably not.
Spider-Man's probably a perfect example of the way to do it. You've got all your side quests that they really didn't make them necessary. You didn't need to do your side quests to upgrade yourself, which was great. Your upgrades come from your story missions, and I went and did everything. I'd like to do that in those type of games because they're such a great gameplay experience. But if I wanted to, and I wanted to finish Spidey quickly, I could do it in 15 hours, maybe less. But then you can put in the extra effort and make it a 25-hour game if you want to, and you're enjoying the experience and you have the time. So maybe they need more of those type of experiences where you can finish the story, but you're not made to go do these side quests.
If you want to spend more time in that world, you can. For sure. It's a good point. Very good point. I know I wasn't upset when they announced that Miles Morales was an expansion that was going to be 10 to 12 hours. I was kind of like, actually, that sounds really good. I'm really keen on that.
Well, I just finished Spidey, so I was kind of like, oh, I don't know if I want to go through and do. I just stuffed that up, didn't I? We'll have to make that a blooper. Did you hear that?
No, keep going. Never stop. Never stop.
So, I mean, I was pretty keen because I just finished Spidey and I was like, oh, do I really want to do another 20 hours of Spider-Man? And I don't think it doesn't look like a full game. And it wasn't. So, yeah, it's good to see. Same world, so obviously we know where the levels are, what's going on. You'll be able to pick it up, play it, and finish it nice and quick.
Brilliant. All right. Well, what do you guys think? Are games too long these days? Should they be trimmed back? Has Sean got a point? Would the games benefit from being a little bit tighter and to help keep the costs down? Let us know below.
Yeah, let us know what you think, and we'll talk to you again soon. Take care.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.